This is going to go into a little bit more detail into how you can use OpenToonz for creating games. There are basically three ways which you can use to bring graphics into a game engine. The first and most well-known would be using Sprite Sheets. Then you would have using a texture atlas. And the final method would be to export all your drawings as a mesh. Exporting as a mesh is what you'd use if you were trying to export the plastic rig. I'm not going to cover that at all. It would require some reasonably extensive programming to export the mesh, because there is currently no built-in exporter for meshes in OpenToonz. I'm also not going to cover texture atlases at the moment. A texture atlas is essentially the same as a sprite sheet. The difference with a texture atlas is where with a sprite sheet, with your sprite sheet, you'll have your drawings sequentially 1, 2, 3, and 4, and each sequence of drawings will represent an animation. With a texture atlas, you basically will also have individual drawings, but they will all be unique. So this is what you'd use for cutout. So you could have a torso, arm, leg, parts of the head, and what you would then need to make a texture atlas work is you would then need to be able to export the rotation and the position per frame of each of these drawings. But for these tutorials, we're going to basically focus on sprite sheets. To make sprite sheets, you can either make them in OpenToonz or you can make them in an external package. There are a lot of external sprite sheet editors. However, if you're going to look to buy a sprite sheet editor, Texture Packer is probably the best. To get Texture Packer, you would go to codeandweb.com. The one thing which you are going to need though is a game engine. There are a lot of game engines available, and there are quite a few 2D engines which are currently available. A lot of the 2D engines are focused on mobile gaming and are therefore better to use specifically for games on mobile devices like phones or tablets. We'll just go through a couple of the main engines. I wouldn't be able to cover everything, but these are some of the more well-known and popular engines. The first engine which you could take a look at would be Starling, which is specifically for 2D games. Starling is generally aimed at mobile applications, although you can make desktop games on most of these. Starling is a fully 2D SDK. It is available at Gamma.com, and Starling is also a free open source engine. Next we have the Corona SDK. The Corona SDK is not free. It is a 2D only engine. It focuses on mobile platforms. It has a marketplace for content and generally works well with your advertising SDKs. Then we have Cocos 2DX. Cocos 2DX is a 2D SDK and it is a C++ SDK. I'm not going to work with Cocos 2DX in any of these tutorials because C++ is reasonably complicated. It is a fantastic SDK and it's definitely worth looking at, and it's probably one of the best of the open source SDKs. For Apple, we have Sprite Kit. Sprite Kit is essentially an SDK which is similar to Cocos, which Cocos 2DX was based off. Sprite Kit is developed by Apple and will only be available for Apple users. Sprite Kit is purely an SDK and does not come with any form of editor, so it is going to rely entirely on your programming knowledge if you're going to use it. Another engine which you can look at is Phaser, which is an open source SDK based off HTML5. What I'm going to be covering are actually the most common game engines which people are going to be using, which are the Unity game engine, because the Unity game engine has a very straightforward 2D engine and also will allow you to have games which mix 2D and 3D. I will also be looking at Unreal. The reason I'll be looking at Unreal is for people who are not programmers the blueprint system is less daunting than having to learn C# or C++. The other engine which I'm going to mention, which is also mainly a 3D engine, is Ogre. I'm not going to be programming in Ogre, and Ogre, as I said, is mainly a 3D gaming engine, but you can also do 2D games in Ogre, although for open source engines I would generally go with Cocos ahead of Ogre for 2D because it's more specialized as a 2D platform.